Bicycle, bicycle, I want to ride my bicycle. Oh my god, hey, welcome back to my Stagey YouTube channel. If you are meeting me for the first time, hello, my name is Mickey Joe and I am obsessed with all things theatre. I am an independent theatre critic and a content creator based here in the UK, and this is my YouTube channel where I review shows that I've been invited to go and see on this side of the Atlantic, and I talk about news and drama happening worldwide. Occasionally I'm also positive about things, but it is a lot of drama. Today I am so excited to be bringing you this video about a new musical called Ride. I went to see this earlier this week at the Charing Cross Theatre. Now, oftentimes when I am invited to go and see shows, it is on a press night. I'm invited as an independent member of the press to go and review it. So I have to review the show as a condition of being given that ticket. It's a whole transactional relationship with the PRs representing the show, if you didn't know. For this particular show, I was actually very kindly invited to the guest night as a guest of the producers, which was incredibly generous because I've been following this show for quite a while now. I first saw this at the Vault Festival in either February or March of 2020. It was right before the pandemic, and this was far and away the best show that I had seen there, and one of the best shows I have ever seen at a fringe festival. This was in a little space underneath the arches of Waterloo, but the performances were so strong and the material powered through this little plucky production and was clearly something incredibly special. I then spent many months with these songs stuck in my head with no way of revisiting them until a workshop version of the show was staged just as we were coming out of lockdown at the Garrick Theatre with a different cast. Now, this was a script-in-hand performance but on a West End stage. Again, thrilling to get to hear the material and see it kind of progressing towards these bigger stages, these bigger audiences. I was happy just to be able to go and support it. Cut to this week, where the show is opening at the Charing Cross Theatre in the West End. I say in the West End, it's not strictly speaking a West End venue. It is an off-West End venue just in terms of its size, but geographically, this is super in the West End. I feel like not enough people know about the Charing Cross Theatre. This is under the Charing Cross railway station, between the Strand and Embankment in London. It is very close to theatres like the Adelphi and the Vaudeville and the Playhouse where the Kit Kat Club is. It is just around the corner. Also, if you're gay, it's opposite Heaven. But it's a little gem of an off-West End theatre. It is very similar to an off-Broadway style kind of a venue, and right now it is playing host to Ride. So I do not have to be reviewing this show. I am making this video purely because I believe in it so much and I want to tell you all about it and try and convince you that this is a new musical worth paying attention to. It is not obviously commercial, it is not based on a film, it does not have celebrity casting, and so there are bigger juggernauts of new musicals that this show is up against right now. But hear me out, I'm going to tell you why this show is so special. So Ride is based on the real life of Annie Londonderry, who was the first woman to cycle around the world. In this particular show, we see her after this record-breaking event when she is trying to pitch herself for a new job as a writer for the New York World, as a columnist. What's so clever about the framing of this show is that the audience serves as the panel who is interviewing her, so she speaks directly to the audience. And as part of this interview process, she decides to tell her story, but she does so in a musical, dramatic way, because of course she does, because this is a stage musical. What I love about the way that this is done is she is not just like instantly magical and like, cool, I'll tell you my story, bam, bam, lighting change, set disappears. It's much subtler than that, and she is working with what she has, including the only other member of the cast, a secretary named Martha, who she ropes in somewhat unwillingly into joining her in telling the story. The two of them multi-role as various different characters, and as the show progresses, the way in which they tell the story becomes gradually more exciting with its staging and its lighting, and the magic of storytelling sort of slowly infuses itself so that she doesn't seem like this magical Mary Poppins type character who just has all of these storytelling abilities at her disposal, but rather we come to understand that she is a woman with very limited means who has a tenacity and a conviction and endless enthusiasm and energy and passion to throw at something like this, and she draws on everything she can find to try and win over this panel. Annie is an incredibly compelling and fascinating character who speaks at 100 miles per hour in a Bostonian accent, and the beauty of this and the way she's written here is that she's so forthcoming with information. You think that she's telling you everything about herself, and you think that she's this open book, and you come to understand there are a lot more hidden layers about her that will only be revealed sort of against her better judgment and against her wishes later on in the plot. And that is all I am going to tell you. I do not want to give you any particular spoilers. If you want to know more about the story, you have to go and see it for yourself. But why did I enjoy it so much? I think the reason why I fell in love with the show initially, and why I still love it so much, is twofold. One, I think, is just its relationship with storytelling, and the fact that this is just a clever framing of a story being told. It's just another way of telling us the history of someone's life. You know, the events are going to be acted out. We are going to see scenes and retrospectives and hear songs about it, but it's not just her coming on and being like, hey audience, let me tell you a story. It's a very clever setup that makes that seem less abrupt. You know how you're always hearing people say they don't get musicals because there's no natural reason for someone to burst into song? This gives an entire framing that explains away that sort of strangeness. She's so desperately trying to win over these people and convince them and thrill them with this fascinating story. Of course she would be singing. She is literally providing an entire song and dance about her life. And the other thing I think that is so clever about Ride is it is ostensibly about this one thing, and then a deeper level of meaning sneaks up on you over the course of the show and just reveals itself to you. I said this quite clumsily in one of the Vox Pops they were filming for the show, so you may hear me saying a slightly twisted version of that idea, but it is very clever in the way that it secludes this deeper level of meaning that you come to find out has been infused into every part of the script prior to that without revealing itself. I think that's very clever. Six does a very similar thing, which is why I always say that Six is a deceptively cleverly written musical. Okay, so the book, music and lyrics have been written by Freya, Catrin Smith and Jack Williams, both of whom I got to meet when I went to go and see the show at the Charing Cross, who were lovely in person. They are both incredible talents because the songs are unbelievably catchy. Not that I think that that is the gold standard that all musical theatre scores have to attain, that they have to be catchy and memorable, but this one manages to feel nuanced and clever and ornate and classic in a way that still feels very contemporary and is so catchy. The title song, Ride, has been in my head for multiple years, and as soon as the other song started, I was instantly reminded of the entire hook of them from the Garrick Theatre version, from the Vault Festival version. I could hear the entire thing as soon as they sang a little bit of the first few lines. I was like, oh, this is that song. Almost all of them have at least one very clever choral hook. They do very well on TikTok, interestingly, and I do believe that a cast recording is coming very soon, which is exciting news. You will all get to hear the songs and you will fall in love with them as well. They have this sort of slightly contemporary folk style where they have an awful lot of momentum. It almost feels like traveling along on a bicycle. They really have musicalized that feeling of sort of gliding forwards on two wheels. That sounds ridiculous, but there is really such a momentum to the score, and once you have lyrics that are talking about that idea, it accompanies it in such a clever way, and you can just feel this sense of propulsion almost. Because that's the kind of thing that music can do, which is fascinating to me. Isn't that clever? And it's obvious when you've got a musical, most of which takes place on a bicycle, that you would want to have a score that makes you feel like that and that sounds like that, but actually being able to write one and understanding how to evoke that kind of feeling, that is genius. That is next level songwriting as far as I'm concerned. So at this point, I've seen various phenomenally talented performers playing these parts. I originally saw Amy Parker playing Annie Londonderry, then subsequently Gemma Sutton at the Garrick Theatre, and now Liv Andruiser, who I was already a fan of because I got to see her playing in Little Women at the Park Theatre. Liv understudied a bunch of the sisters in that production. I got to see her playing the second oldest one. I don't remember the names of the women in Little Women, but she was the one that got married and was very happy about it and didn't sing Astonishing, which is a much milder character than I remembered Annie Londonderry being, so I was fascinated to see her in this. She comes out, unsurprisingly, all guns blazing in this production. The accent work is terrific. She does not miss a single second, and she has to speak incredibly quickly and deliver with panache and versatility and charisma like nothing else. It's a barnstorming performance, and one of my favourites that I've seen this entire year. in the West End, which is a huge thing for me to say, but I am saying it. The material gives her so much to work with. It is really such a brilliant character over the course of the show. She gets to show so much versatility. She gets to act her face off. She gets to belt to high heaven. She gets to ride a bicycle. That's not as hard as the other two things because, you know, it's just like riding a bike, but it's fun, so I enjoy that for her. She is joined on stage by Yuki Sutton, who I loved very much in Tokyo Rose at the Edinburgh Fringe, and then when I saw it again at Southwark Playhouse. Yuki was one of the standout performers in a very strong ensemble, so I was thrilled to see her here. She plays the comparatively less flashy character of Martha, but who gets a very interesting arc of personal growth and discovery throughout the show. And Yuki plays this in a really exciting way. You know, there's a very obvious and straightforward roadmap of how you could play this type of character. We've seen a lot of them in musical theatre. It's a very Sister Mary Robert type of a situation where she's very mild-mannered and withdrawn and comes out of her shell. But I don't think in recent memory I've ever seen such an interesting take on that type of a character. Yuki really finds some really interesting new flavours in this performance that we've seen a lot of before. And when the two of them sing together, it's like fireworks. It's really fantastic. Also, fun fact, Amy Parker, who was the first actress I ever saw play Annie Londonderry back at the Vaults Festival and subsequently joined Yuki Sutton in Tokyo Rose at Southwark Playhouse, is alternate Annie Londonderry for this production and understudying Martha. So you may see her playing either of those roles depending on what performance you go to. And you'll be very lucky if you do, because she is a huge rising star. I am tempted to go back just to see her play this role again, because it definitely caught my attention when she did. They also establish a really interesting, slightly prickly rapport on stage. There is an intimacy between the two of them that's fantastic, but it's the moments of tension between them that are even more fascinating to watch. Liv as Annie is certainly one of the sharper performers of the character that I've seen, because she comes across very charismatic, and you know that thing of when you're in an interview and you just want to be friendly and smiley and aren't we already best friends? Hire me. But she has these asides to Martha that are much more cutting. And where I've seen that played sort of slightly sarcastically before, there is a brutal switch in her demeanour when Liv Andruiser plays her and turns to Martha, which is fascinating to watch. It's almost sociopathic, really. But it makes for some really interesting scene work between the two of them later in the show. I feel like a lot of time was spent really establishing that relationship. As always, when I'm talking about performances, a huge amount of credit also has to go to the director, Sarah Meadows. So now let's talk about her and the rest of the creative team. So Sarah's direction is something I find really exciting in this production. I have never seen it with this level of a set before. The set design is stunning. It has been done by Amy Jane Cook. It's an incredibly clever set that has a few little tricks up its sleeve, but even at the beginning, it just looks beautiful and is one of, I think, the most clever ways I've ever seen the Charing Cross Theatre space utilised. This is a space that used to be a traditional proscenium staging and has subsequently been adapted to have a stage in the middle with audiences on either side, which is called traverse staging. And this does something different to either of those previous productions, where it is still a proscenium set, but they have put the set in the middle where the middle stage used to be, but they are just using much more depth behind it. So the auditorium capacity is slightly reduced from previous productions you may have seen at the Charing Cross Theatre, which also means it might sell out faster than you expect. So if you want tickets, you may already be too late. I've been talking for 22 minutes, so time's a wasting. But also don't leave, because I'm not done. So rude. So Sarah has them playing all over this set like this beautiful playground. It's a really clever space that just gives way to some beautiful storytelling. It is all about how this story and how these scenes and these across the world locations come to life within the context of a newspaper office. Natasha Harrison is credited as movement director and choreographer, and there are moments of more traditional sort of dance within this show, but a lot of it is movement. And on the musical side of things, Sam Young is the musical director and Mary Schmidt is the orchestrator, and the score sounds stunning. It really does. So kudos to all of them for the brilliant work that they have done. I enjoyed it all very much. At this point, it may sound like I'm being uncharacteristically kind to this production, and I have grown into a fan of this show, but only because I think this material is so strong, and it avoids a lot of the pitfalls that it could go into. When it arrives at a certain subplot, it knows exactly when to move on from that. You have just these two characters on stage. Much of the action is dominated by just the one of them, but it alternates the power between the two of them in a very interesting way. At no point does it feel stale, does it feel repetitive, does it feel like the pace has slowed down. It keeps moving at this rate, kind of like a bicycle. It's a one-act show. It's clever enough to know what its limitations are and know that this is the best way to tell this story, that it has been condensed into a tight enough narrative and nothing else needs to be added to this. This is really a very finished product. In all of the development I have seen it have, it has not changed that much, because I think what they wrote initially was just such a strong concept with beautiful songs. So if I haven't already convinced anyone who just loves theatre as much as I do to go and see Ride, based on everything I have said, let me tell you some other shows that it has kind of similar vibes to help you get a sense of whether or not you would enjoy this. If you like Newsies at all, this is like Newsies, but for the gals. It's set towards the very end of the 19th century, so you know it's a similar era. It's another sort of tale of a plucky individual trying to rise up. If you like Amelie, I feel like this has straight up Amelie vibes, especially in its score and in its kind of quirkiness. The show is not ostensibly queer, but it definitely has its moments. If you like shows like Little Women, like Daddy Longlegs, you will absolutely enjoy this as well. And I think for being a one-act show, it has a stronger pace and a more compelling narrative than either of those musicals. At no point do I ever feel bored when I am watching this show. I think it's really exciting. I think it's really dynamic. I honestly cannot recommend it enough. And the show is only running until the 17th of September. Make sure you buy your tickets to go and see it at the Charing Cross Theatre. If you've already seen it, or you got to see one of its previous versions at either the Garrick Theatre or the Vault Festival, let me know down in the comments what you thought about this show. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's new review. If you did, make sure to subscribe to my Stagey YouTube channel, for the love of goodness. Why haven't you already? That way you will make sure you do not miss any of the content I have coming up. I have plenty more reviews. I have a new weekly vlog series about all of my adventures around town, so you can see me actually going to all of these shows, including going to the guest night of Ride. There's some sneaky footage from that included in my latest one as well. If you really enjoyed today's video, you can give me a super thanks down below. That very much helps me as a Stagey content creator to keep making all of these videos at the rate that I currently am. Or you can head to patreon.com/MickeyJoeTheatre, where you can gain access to some exclusive photo and video content. I hope that everybody's staying safe and that you have a stagey day. For 10 more seconds, I'm Mickey Joe Theatre. Oh my god, hey. Thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!